Hi everyone, this is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching with today's video, which is 259, and I called it Only Colorful Flying Geese and Sashing. This comes from McCall's Quilting, September-October 2020, page 50. We're going to talk about choosing fabrics, the flying geese technique, and then finally constructing the quilt. And here is the quilt. It's small. It's 43 by 44. Make a great wall hanging or maybe even a table covering. But you can see all these great flying geese. And I think what attracted me at first was the colors and then just the idea of how neat it was going to be to get that to look like that. So that said, I want to show you how far I've gotten on the one that I'm working on. Scoot it over here. I've gotten 3 of the 8 columns finished. And you can see I didn't use solid colors. I had a set that I keep going back to, the things that go together, and I keep going back to those. And the nice thing about this is you're going to have only so few 5 1/4 squares to start with. You're going to end up making 116 flying geese, which sounds like a lot, but once you get started it really flows. And looking at the colors in the background, you might hear some of the rain. I'm doing this during that week that we've had so much rain, and I just can't find a good time to do this without that. So we just have a little background noise. But what I did is I made a chart, and then I'll also repeat it in the description, because once you set it up, it just really goes. And so the first thing that I just was going to talk about was your fabrics, and you're going to need 8 fabrics, and you're going to cut each one of them into a certain number of 5 1/4 inch squares. And what I did is I labeled 8 different sections, and that was going to be for my 8 colors, and cut my squares. So for example, color number 1, I cut 4 squares, and this is just information that at the end you're going to have 16 geese. This is where you're going to get your 116 from. But then color 2, you cut 5 squares, and 3, you do 4 all the way down there, and you can see they're all different. And you'll notice that 2 of them, well, 3 of them actually have more colors. And I looked at number 2 had 5 of them. So, you know, that's going to be sort of a dominant color. So if you pick a red, it's going to show up and really show up. And then you may not want to do that. And that's what I did, is I picked one of the patterns that had a lot of the colors in it that I was doing, so that it would pull your eye to that and pull it all together. All right. And then the next thing was to look at the background color. Now I used a tan, they used a white, and there's very few patches that you need to cut. You'll need one larger one for one of the columns. These are to fill in your columns in the quilt, and 4 1/2 by 8 1/2, and then some 4 1/2 squares. Now here's your big one, is 116 patches, 278 squares. So you know, all right. And then later, after you get everything put together, or you get ready to put it together, you're going to need your sashing is 1 1/2 inches wide by approximately 40 1/2 inches. I wouldn't cut that until I measured how mine had turned out. And the borders have 2 1/2 inches wide. And this will tell you about the size of this little quilt, that it only takes 2 7/8. yards, right at 3 yards to do the backing. And in mine, I went in and laid my, when I got my column done, my first column, well, in 2 columns, I took those in and laid them next to each other with a little space, and I auditioned colors that might go in there, and that's how I came up with the rust rather than gray or anything like that. And you'll notice as you look at the piece that I've already got done, there are positions that change in the quilt. This side is going up, but it's not like that all the way through it, and I'll show you what I've got to explain that. And then here's the next one, and they're going down, but you can see where one of those bigger panels of their background has been put in there. And then the next one looks similar to the first, but you're going to have to do each one separately. So this is a matter of doing all of the colors that you want to do. And once you get those set up and you've got them in your piles, then, and you've got your geese made, then you're going to be ready to go back. But here again, you put them in pile 1, pile 2, pile 3 by the color. And the setup makes it sound so complicated, but once you really get started, it's not. And you can even take and do your colors and then do a scrappy quilt and just take and use those the way you want to use them, and even turn them the way you want them to go. I'll move that one more time. And for example, and I'm going to put this in the description too, but here is how it goes. And so in the first column, that's going to be the first column on the quilt. When you start with color 1, and you use 2 of your flying geese, and they're going to go up. That's the third part. Then the next one is color 2. You're going to use 2, and they're going to go up. And 3 uses 2, it's going to go up, and so does 4. Now there's a darker one there, that 4.5 times 12.5. That's going to be one of your background colors that you've cut. But then if you notice in that first column, when you get to 5, 6, 7, 8, they go down. Now that's an easy one because everything's in an order. And then after that, things change when you get to column 2. Now I pulled back out the quilt, and you can see that there are 2 greens, and then there's the second color, and there's 2. And the next color. So on that first one, the pattern goes like that. But you can sort of look over here at column 2, and you'll see this dark one at the front. That's one different color, and then this one. But now they're turning down. They're facing down. And then you have the fill-in for that row. Okay, now we're down to constructing your flying geese. If you already know how to do this, you can skip this part. And I just wanted to show you that when I got finished, how I had all of my flying geese for a column, and I put them in order, and I turned them the direction that they needed to go. So if that was going north, and then the other one, then there was a color block. This one just looks like it's going almost all the way up, just going, so that's interesting. That's one funny, I picked that one up. Okay, on your flying geese, you're going to take this larger 5 1/4 inch, whether you use a solid or you use a print, and that's all you have to do to it, is just cut those and keep them together. And then you're going to have a bunch, 116 of these cream colored ones, or white, and they are 2 7/8 inch. And I would use that. I would not use 3 because we don't have a way to really cut this down if you start with a bigger square. So we got that. All right, here's my large square. And I've taken 2 of the squares, and before you start and you've got all of your squares cut, I did go through and mark it, because you can draw your line that goes down the center on all of your blocks and then go out 1/4 of an inch from that center, because that's going to be your cut line. All right, and so I had done that. I had taken a piece of sandpaper, set that on there, use this, and I use a mechanical pencil. All right, so then when I got ready, I'm going to lay this down, but I want to line up those lines that I have on there, and that's pretty good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sewing machine. I'm going to come. Now, this is one thing too, that do 1 or 2 to see exactly how yours are fitting. And what I'm saying is, I found with my sewing machine, to have my room right, I just went on the inside of my line a little bit on both sides. And you can get where you can chain stitch these too. And so I'm going to take this over to a machine, and I'm going to line it up so I'm stitching on that side. Now on this one, I'm just going to turn it around, because I'm only going to do this one for a sample. And I'm going to come on the inside, because I'll show you. All right, and now I'm going to go this down the center. Of course, I didn't pick up a good cutting scissor. Here's one. I'm going to go down the center. And then the best way that I found to press those is to take and point that up. Take and do the points and point those up. And then when you get that one done, you're going to end up with 2 parts that look like this. You're going to have 2 that look like this, and you've pressed it up. And at any point you want to, you can cut off those little puppy ears on the end. And some of them I did near the end, and some of them later or earlier. All right, then you'll have 2 of those. Well, then you're going to take the same squares that you have, that same size square, and take and lay it with the point on the end, and it's going up to the center, and it lays nice and flat like that. All right, because what we have is our cutting line's going to be down the middle. We're going to stitch this, and there again, I stitched it the same as I did on the other parts, so that all of mine would look the same. And I found that I could do those with chain stitching too, but on this one I'm just going to pull it out and around. This is just one of the funniest projects. Instead of doing one block, you just sort of do all of your pieces, and then you get to have the fun by following the directions and pointing the ones that go up and mixing the colors up. I think I would like to, and then I'm going to take it, I'm going to fold that, and I'm going to point it back. And there's my flying geese. And this one was not cut off, so I'm going to go ahead and cut him off. And that's just so that you know exactly where you want your pieces to come. And that made me think about when you start to get ready to put your pieces together. All right, and those, so that makes two. That one square is going to make your four. All right. Now let's say that I want to sew these together. Here's what I figured out, and it really worked. Let's say that both of these are going to be going up. Two more little tags there. All right, and I would need it to go like that. Well, I take and set these two together, and in this case, you could just stitch across there, and I did, but then I realized, like in the other project we've done before, if I turn it over, and because of the way that I've pressed them, I can see right here where the two lines cross each other. You can see them right there. There's a place where they cross. So I'm going to aim for that. I'm going to be thinking about my 1/4 of an inch, but then I'm going to be watching for that spot. And sit down. And I'm going to cross right where they cross and hope for the best. When I open it up, that one's very close. I mean, that one's not even worth taking apart. All right, now what happens when you have one, and let's say, usually there's the white piece in between when you're gonna change direction. But this time we're gonna, let's just pretend I'm taking, it says to change direction. All right, so when I never had this happen, so, but this point would be the same to turn them over. And this time it wouldn't matter which side you did, because you can see that little point right there where you cross. And if everything else has been a 1/4 of an inch, then that's going to go, and that's going to hit. And I'll pull up this sample one that I had. And if you look at these, you can see this one is right on, that one's right on, that's a little off, that's a little off, but look at this one, and it's right on, right on, right on, right on. And when you get it all put together, if it's close, it's going to be great, because you're going to have all these colors put together to make this panel. And here's what I've gotten finished so far. I'm halfway, and when we stop today, it's still raining. I'm going to be sitting down with those pieces and getting them put together. But I was at a place where it's a repeat and repeat kind of situation, that when I got this many done, I said, gosh, I could go ahead and show you where to go with this. And there again, it's 1.5 inch strip sashing in between. There's going to be a 2-inch border on the outside. And I had thought about too, a child's quilt, or a quilt for a child's room, or a wall hanging. And you could make it even wider. You can make it longer. You know, there's a lot of things you can do when you have a quilt pattern like this. The setup is the big thing, and then you're ready to go and have this great time. The rest of the video will show a repeat of the quilt and repeats of the sheets, and I will have those also retyped into the description. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching. I hope you like this one and have fun picking out your colors and your sashing in between. Thank you for watching. Please hit subscribe and like if you learned anything or you think you've got something fun to do.